Fast Yearly Podcast presents The Tome Travelers.
Well, hi and welcome, and this is John with Tome Travelers, and today I am joined by a special guest. We have on the show appearing today, we have Owen KC Stephens. Owen, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me. This
is going to be interesting. I've had a lot of different people on the show, but there are things that I always love to ask creators when they come on. So, gaming. One of the things I always find with creators is that we're almost always gamers first. We all got started in gaming, and that is usually what launched us into a career in it of some sort. So I was curious, what got you started in gaming?
So in 1982, my parents took a trip to Europe and quite reasonably did not want to bring my sister and I along. So we were left at my Uncle Lucian's house for the summer, and he had a first edition Dungeon Master's Guide for D&D. And he was just the sort of person that had geek and pulp related things. He had an Apple computer with a flight simulator and a Go board, etc. But I was just fascinated by this hardback book that had this demon-looking thing on the cover, and it said it was a game, and I wanted to play. And he said, well, Owen, I bought that, and it's interesting, but I don't know how to play it. So if you can figure out how to play it, we'll play the game. So I took a look at it, and I realized that there was information missing because, of course, there was no player's handbook with it. All I had was this one DMG. And so I looked at the things in the DMG and figured out what information was missing by looking at the simple stat blocks for monsters and such, and created the missing rules. So I was literally doing game design before I ever played a role-playing game.
Oh, that's
now,
amazing.
It was terrible, horrible game design. I was in my pre-teens, right? But yeah. It still worked, and we played several games, and I was hooked on it over the summer. And so when I went home, I was constantly wanting to find people to role-play with, and that is how that entire history and later career got started for me.
Awesome. That is definitely one of the first things I've heard. A lot of people talk about early D&D and having a huge influence on who they became, the games they played. One of the things that touching on from there, you moved into obviously game creation. You've had your hands on a lot of different games over the years and been involved in a lot of them. Can you give us a list of them?
I will inevitably forget some, but I did articles for Dragon Magazine for 2nd edition D&D and Alternity. I did some generic game articles for Pyramid Magazine, and then I was hired by Wizards of the Coast to be part of the RPG R&D design team. And there I worked on the Star Wars D20 role-playing game, and then the revised Star Wars role-playing game, and then later when I was freelancing, I was one of the co-creators of the Saga edition of Star Wars D20 role-playing game. I worked on D&D. I have official credits for 3.0 and 3.5 and 4.0 Dungeons & Dragons, as well as some previous 2nd edition stuff. I worked on the Wheel of Time role-playing game. I was very active as a freelancer during the D20 boom, so I was working on D20 Gamma World and Black Company and Thieves World, and did a lot of work on the tabletop EverQuest role-playing game that was out in the early aughts. I also worked on Dragon Age for Green Ronin, and some of that work I also helped adapt to Fantasy Age. I worked on the Pathfinder role-playing game. I was one of the co-creators of the Starfinder role-playing game. I've done some work on the Pathfinder 2nd edition role-playing game, and I'm sure that someone's favorite game out there I have forgotten to mention. So, like D20 Modern, for example. I did a lot of work on D20 Modern books. So there's been a lot of it. Most of it has been D20 focused, although things like the Dragon Age and Fantasy Age books go beyond that, and I've done work that is not tied to any one role-playing game.
Awesome. Like I said, I was like, yeah, this is going to be something. But here's a question that I think is really going to be interesting to know. So out of everything that you've made, if you could be anyone or anything in one of the products that you made, who would you want to be?
You always, when you're trying to create things for a role-playing game, you always want to create things with flaws in them. And so I tend to look at the flaws of everything I make as hooks. And that allows me to be very cautious about saying I would want to be any of those things.
Oh, yeah.
But I do confess that I have a particular love for Nuar, the Minotaur Prince of Absalom, who is a size medium albino minotaur who is more intelligent than others of his kind and a good deal less violent. And as a result of having helped save the Primarch of the city of Absalom one night on the wharf, has been given special tax-exempt status and has managed to parlay that into a small financial empire. And I'm very, very fond of that character. He's a fish out of water, but he's someone who survives on wits and on the rewards from having saved someone when there was no benefit for doing so. And in fact, I like Nuar so much that when we were working on the Starfinder role-playing game, as one of my Easter eggs, I stuck in an entire species of size medium, highly intelligent albino minotaurs known as the Nuar.
Ah, nice. Yeah. Well, I mean, moving on from here, the reason that you're on our show today is that we're talking about your project 52 and 52. And so, I mean,
yeah,
giving us, the if you had like that paragraph, what is it that you're doing with this?
52 and 52 program is an opportunity for people to get a new game product each week, every week, for all 52 weeks of the year 2020. And all of those products are going to be released for 4 game systems. We're going to do 4 different versions of every product, one for Pathfinder 1st Edition, one for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, one for Starfinder, and one for 5th Edition. So it's a total of 208 total products, although it's 4 versions of 52 products. And one of the things we want to do is create a opportunity for people to buy in at one price and then get stuff throughout the year that they can use all of it or as little of it as they want. They can combine different elements of it to create different kinds of games. They can hop from game to game to game. If someone is currently playing a first edition Pathfinder game and they switch to second edition, they don't have to worry about buying new versions of these products. They'll have everything all at once.
And some of the products, you've got a catalog out right now, or it's kind of like a preview catalog on Drive-Thru-RPG.
Catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Drive-Thru-RPG at Rogue Genius Games. You can also get it at the Open Gaming Store, which is where you do the pre-order for the bundle. It has the title and release date of all 52 products, one-sentence descriptions of them, and cover art for a lot of them. Obviously, since we're doing this over the course of a year, we don't have everything ready to go now, or we would just sell it all at once. But we have done a considerable amount of work conceptualizing these and starting them and get them together, and we want people to have some idea what it is we're asking them to buy in the pre-order period. So we have everything from simple character classes for people who are interested in that sort of thing. We've got a rune magic class, and we're doing something that we're calling the Eld Mage, which is someone who has much fewer access to how many times they can use magic, but they're always using the most powerful magic available that they can just barely control.
Yeah.
But we're also doing campaign settings. We've got a Magic Girl campaign setting, and we've got TSM, which stands for Teens Solving Mysteries. And each month, our products are themed so that, for example, the same month we're doing Teens Solving Mysteries, we're also doing Rutrow, the Guide to Talking Animals as Playable Ancestries. So if you want to play the dog or shark or cat or wombat that is part of a group of humans, or for that matter, teen humans, wandering around doing stuff, we will give you that option. And you can combine that with Teens Solving Mysteries, or you can say, no, what I really want is to run a campaign that is all Puss in Boots type cat fuzzy characters. You can just take those talking animal rules and apply them to any of those 4 role-playing games. So the hope is that people will have a huge multiplier of the numbers of types of things they can do for their game by buying this one product line.
Awesome. Now, looking at the products, I mean, there are things that jumped out at me immediately, and you've actually mentioned a couple of them. You talked about, you have something listed, they're a master class Runecaster and Rune Magic. We've got those listed for January, which right off the bat, I'm just like, ooh, yes, please, absolutely. It's one of those things where I love things that go outside the bounds of what we understand of classes or magic or anything else, even if they're not necessarily approved for organized play. I love them at my table.
And obviously, this is all third-party material, so people are welcome to use it at their homes however they want, but it's not going to be Adventurers League or Pathfinder Society legal. But yeah, we wanted to launch off with some of the things that people had specifically asked for. Beginning this summer, I started asking on social media, hey, if I could create anything for any one of these games, what would you want to see? And runes and rune blades and rune casters, and a system that makes runes different from just a spell were one of the things that people were really excited by. So I started working on that at the time, and that sort of evolved into this 52 and 52 project. So that's one of the reasons why it's one of the things we're launching with in January.
And also, like, one of the other things that I guess I'm curious about, I think it kind of says it all in the catalog, but the Cantripthurge. Cantripthurge, I think?
Cantripthurge. Yes, it is designed to create a character class that focuses fully and exclusively on cantrips. Cantrips can be very, very flexible spells, and in some of these game systems, cantrips can grow with you naturally over time. So it's going to be really easy to create a class that, instead of moving to higher and higher level spells, just gets broader and more flexible access to cantrip magic, and we can create new cantrips that will patch some of the holes that maybe cantrips don't normally fulfill. For other game systems like Starfinder, cantrips are designed as always minor magic that won't grow with you. So for those, the versions of that class in those systems, we're going to have rules for beefing up what cantrips will do. But I like that all of those games have cantrips as something that you can sort of do all day, every day, without having to worry about running out of them. And I believe that there is a way to balance what you can do with cantrips with having nonstop access to them. There are people that get frustrated when their magical character decides, I'm going to use my fireball in the second encounter, and then in the third encounter you think, well, what I really need now is a fireball, but I've run out of spells of that level. So obviously your peak power won't be as great as if you had things that ran out, but you'll be able to depend on having access to these things all the time. And for a lot of players, and even some GMs, that's just more fun.
Yeah, and I've always found cantrips in the games to always be one of the most creative uses I see out of players comes out of cantrips, and some of the most cinematic role-playing I always see out of cantrips. People are always much more descriptive with what they do with them and what they're trying to get by. The idea of that being in the class, kind of as a focus, I love.
Yeah, I agree with you that people do tend to get more creative with what they try and do with cantrips. And I think some of that is that cantrips have a lower risk, right? If I'm a player and I've got a second level spell and I only have 4 second level spell slots per day, I'm not going to try something and risk the GM saying, no, you just wasted your spell slot, and by the way, you're going to want that later in another 2 encounters. But with cantrips, I can say, hey, can I use this cantrip that allows me to flavor food to make the food here spicier so that it is more palatable to this group that we're trying to have diplomacy with, and therefore have a better chance of getting them to like us? That's the sort of thing that you're willing to risk with that no resource cost spell. And that's the sort of thing I want to encourage with this class and this product.
Absolutely. One other that jumped out at me, and I think definitely hits with the trend of this last year in gaming, and you mentioned it as well, the Magical Girls campaign guide. I myself, I love the young kind of protagonist games that are out there. If you don't mind me like this mentioning a couple of them, like Kids on Bikes, or even
absolutely.
World of Darkness, Innocence, or Little Fears. All these games that have kind of a young protagonist. Now a lot of those are kind of horror themed, but Magical Girls campaign guide. And of course, I don't know if this is the art that you're going to use for the book, but it jumped out at me definitely.
We certainly may use that cover. That is our current plan. Obviously, we've got a lot of time between now and that comes out, so that might become an interior piece. We might find something we like better for the cover. But right now, that is definitely the art we're using, and we think it conveys what we want really well. I think there's an entire genre that really lends itself to the role-playing paradigm, right? You've got a group of friends who are granted extraordinary powers that come with them rules and built-in enemies, and frequently you've got to balance what you're doing in your home life and what you're doing in your heroing life. That paradigm is actually much closer to how role-playing games tend to work than, say, Lord of the Rings, where the assumption is there's this one terrible thing and we're going to go take care of it, and half of us aren't going to live to make it, and we break up and divide the party, and we're whole sorts of different people coming and going. Yeah. And then when it's over, right? That's not the way most role-playing game campaigns go. So I think it's a very rich field, and there's a big tradition of it. And just like early role-playing games were borrowing from Tolkien and Moorcock and a lot of other things, I think there is ample room in the Magic Girl genre to maybe access some stuff that will allow for some interesting role-playing and give some people things that might be fans of Magical Girls who would like to play those that aren't finding exactly that itch is being scratched by anything that's already out there.
And especially if these are going into Pathfinder, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, Starfinder, D&D. I mean, if these are being plugged into that, it opens up that genre, or that, people who are familiar with those rules for that kind of gameplay. And I think
absolutely. I think those are 4 popular, well-known game systems, and by hitting all of them, I think we are, at least hopefully, we're hitting a large target audience, which will allow us to open these concepts up to a lot of players. I'd like this, if possible. I mean, obviously, I'd like it to make lots of money because I'm spending time and effort in doing it.
Yeah.
But I also like the possibility that we might introduce people to some gaming opportunities, some themes, and some ways of doing things that they might not have run into before.
Absolutely. It's that new experience. That first time that I sat down and played D&D, it was a new experience. It was something that I never had been able to do before. And a lot of times I seek out new material and new games because I want that feeling again. I want that newness. I want something that's going to surprise me. And honestly, 52 games in a year right there. I mean, right off the bat, I'm just like, every week I'm going to have something that's just going to be new and different.
I think a lot of people, they want to chase that feeling of realizing there's a dragon in the next room for the first time, or running into a beholder for the first time, or for that matter, realizing that this is not, in fact, a dungeon stomp, that we are engaged in negotiations and a murder mystery, for example. It's really easy to do the simple things that the role-playing game is presenting as its core experience and get into a rut. And it's one of the places where I think we've had a real renaissance in what game companies are able to offer, not just the big game companies, but the fact that there are so many open source and OGL and Creative Commons systems out there where other people can come in and say, okay, I see that that's what you guys are doing for Greyhawk or the Forgotten Realms or Golarion or whatever, but here's something I think might be neat, and hopefully other people will appreciate it and will give a new experience using rules they're already familiar with.
Yeah. Other things that I'm curious about with this system, or with this project, is there anyone else that you're bringing on board for the project? Anyone else that you're going to have guesting or anything like that?
We do not know for certain if anyone else is going to be brought on board yet. I'm talking to a number of people, but obviously I don't want to make announcements until ink is dry. The plan is that I will write or develop every product. So I've got plenty of room to bring on other developers and editors and even writers if I then go over their work. I've done that before. I've got a lot of experience with it. But if in the end we decide that the workflow is best for me to write everything, I mean, that's not more writing than I've done in a year.
Oh, no.
I did 52 products in 52 weeks without fail 4 years in a row at one point.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the workflow. It is being done with the assistance of Rogue Genius Games, which is the game company that is myself and my wife and Stan, with an exclamation point, who's a veteran in gaming, who's been doing this even longer than I have. And so, for example, we had a brainstorming session when we were coming up with what are the 52 products, how do we want to put this together, how do we want to pitch it, how are we going to theme them together. So that's already had the touch of minds other than my own, polishing my rough ideas and making them sparkle better as collaborative gems. I hope to do that more as we go on. Some of that will depend on how well the project does, because I don't want to ask other people to come on unless I'm able to compensate them for their time well. So I'm taking the big risk and saying I will do all of this regardless of how well our pre-order and the sales go later. But obviously, the better it does, the more we'll be able to reach out and say, we really like your work for Magic Girls, or we think you've done really good horror stuff, or, I know a lot of people in the industry. I'd love to work both with some veterans and hopefully maybe even bring in some new people as part of this project.
Awesome. Obviously, same goes with artists. Is there anyone that you're looking at currently as well?
We will almost certainly be working with Jacob Blackman for at least some of these. I mean, Jacob is someone that I have known for 19 years now. He is featured in a lot of the game products Rogue Genius and before that Super Genius done. He's worked with a lot of companies, Legendary and Purple Duck and Everybody Games and Christina Stiles. So he's become a veteran and fan favorite artist, and I love working with him because he is also a gamer. And he's also a game writer and a creator. So he understands sometimes what the artistic needs of a game project will be. He's got his own line called the Superpowered Legends, which are Mutants and Masterminds characters and settings, which he writes and illustrates so that the creative vision is his. but it's easy to say things in game terms to him, right? I can say, okay, I need 3 size small critters and 1 size huge critter, and I don't have to explain size small means roughly the size of a dog, size huge is an elephant or bigger. If I talk about Fireball, he knows what kind of spell I'm talking about, and he understands the need of game art to be both very evocative and excite you to want to play that option or fight that monster or go to that dungeon, but also to be things that can be described and make sense within a game world.
Obviously, that brings us to the final point with your campaign, and it's not so much a crowdfunding campaign, but it's a pre-order campaign. We
are currently running a pre-order. The pre-order will run through the end of the year, and if there's a big demand for it, we might extend it into January. But right now, buying into the program is $29.95, and that will get you the product a week every week through 2020. And as part of the pre-order, we also have a bonus bundle of more than 500 PDFs that you get immediately so that you've got something to look at over the holidays before January rolls around. Once we close the pre-order, the bonus bundle won't be part of it anymore, and the price will go up to $49.95, which that's still less than $1 a product. So we feel confident that is, in fact, if you're counting all 208, it's less than a quarter a product. So we are confident that that is a good price point, but obviously the more money we have up front, the easier it will be for us to edit and lay out and get art for all the early products, which is why we're offering the bonus price and hoping to get people tied in now.
Yeah.
As an independent creative, there's also an advantage here that I only have to try and get people's attention once. One of the things I have noticed over the decades is when I'm trying to release something myself and I don't have a huge company backing me, it can be hard just to let people who will be excited by that product know it exists. You can only do so much with social media and with mailing lists and notifications, and you don't want to be a pest, right? You don't want to constantly be poking people and say, hey, I've got a new product. Hey, I've got a new product. So with this, having all 52 products be part of one project, if I get your attention at any point over the next 14 months, I can point you at this one united link of products, and you can get everything rather than missing the one thing that might have been exactly what you wanted because I couldn't find the way to put that in front of you.
And honestly, I mean, the price point, what all you're getting, the bundle in and of itself, this is an amazing project. There's a lot of people out there that I'm going to be pointing this to because they are usually, core book specific people, but they're also at that point with the way the market is that they're looking for more. They're like, hey, the thing I really like isn't coming out at a pace that I want. What can I do? I'm like, well, here's some games that you can.
Yeah.
All right.
The nice thing with that Megabundle is if you like 1% of the stuff we give you, that's 5 products you like. And I can't guess which 5 that will be, but at the buy-in price we have for it, it's worth it, even if there's only a tiny portion of it that you open, you go, oh yeah, this is awesome.
Absolutely. So for people who are interested in 52 and 52, where do they need to go to get involved?
So the pre-order itself is at the Open Gaming Store. That's opengamingstore.com. And they have both the pre-order and the 52 and 52 free teaser. You can also follow me on Facebook, for example. I will be talking about it regularly. That's facebook.com/Owen K.C Stephens. I'll talk about it on Twitter. That is Twitter, Owen_Stephens. And then DriveThruRPG. You can go to the Rogue Genius Games page, and we have the catalog that you and I were talking about there for free as well. So it's a free download, and it has links that will take you to the pre-order if that's what you want to do.
I look forward to myself grabbing a copy of this. I'll be hopping on and grabbing it. And obviously, it's wonderful to have you on the show. Always love having game veterans coming on. So thank you so much for coming on and telling us about this product.
I appreciate very much you inviting me around.
All right. Well, guys, that's going to be it. Be sure to check out our show notes. We'll also have links to all these things that we discussed there. And we hope you guys enjoy it and go get a copy. All right. Talk to y'all later.
Pathfinder Podcast presents The Tome Travelers.